Welcome, lovers. I don't know what I'm doing, but you probably already knew then. Welcome back to the channel, because I got a story for you. Before we get into that, though, I need you to see what my best friend made. Look at how fucking cute that is. Oh my god. And she gave them to me. Oh my god. Oh, she's so talented. There's a little heart, too. Anyways, that is beside the point of the video. I just really wanted to show you that. So, twice now, within the span of just a couple of days, I have had interactions with complete fucking strangers who are really goddamn creepy. So I figured, why not make something good out of it by doing a story time? I'm going to tell you in chronological order because the first incident was kind of short and has a lot less detail to it. So I went to the gas station the other day to get me an icy and some little snacks, as you do, and it was kind of late at night, so it was mostly just me and a couple workers and like one or two other people. But while I was browsing the snack options, a random, very tall man who's definitely a lot older than me came up to me and was like, "Hey, I need a ride to McDonald's to get food for my family." And I was just kind of like, "I'm sorry, what?" And he was like, "Can you give me a ride to McDonald's to get food for my family? You don't have to stay in the car or go in with me. I just need you to drop me off." And I'm standing there thinking, either this guy thinks I'm really fucking dumb, or he thinks I'm too nice to say no. Because this is very obviously a trap. Because, like, first of all, he came up to me and was, like, whispering at me, so it was already sketchy as shit. But, like, what he was asking? Fuck no. And as I was standing there staring at him like, "Are you fucking kidding me?" the worker behind me, who I think was cleaning the floors, just kind of leans over and goes, "What did you just ask her?" And so he, in a more shy tone of voice, repeats himself. And she's like, "You cannot be asking people that in here." And he's like, "Oh, sorry, I didn't know." And she was like, you need to leave. No, not okay." And she's like, "Are you okay?" And I'm like, "I'm fine. It just caught me off guard." And he like turns back around and is like, "What time is it, by the way?" And she's like, "Time for you to leave." So he leaves, thankfully. And so she's talking to me, trying to make sure I'm okay. And then one of the other ladies who was there shopping comes up and is like, did he ask you the same thing? He asked me to take him there and for $20, and mentioned nothing of family to her. And it was just a really sketchy, ridiculous situation. And obviously, being the wonderfully nice person that the worker was, after I checked out, she like opened the door and leaned out physically to watch me get in my car and leave safely, which I greatly appreciate. But the whole thing was just stupid. Now, the second of these two stories, which is the reason I decided to make this video, is a lot worse. So I'm a busser and I work at a restaurant. I was working closing shift this day, and because the busser is one of the last few people to leave, it would be me, a manager, and whoever closed the kitchen. This dude comes in with a group of people to celebrate his birthday. Fine, normal, whatever. Dude gets drunk, it happens. Again, don't think about it because I'm doing my job, passing by, doing other shit. His whole group of friends leave. So he is then there by himself, either already drunk or in the process of getting drunk, and we're just like, that's weird, but okay. He's talking to the waitresses and some staff passing by. Seems friendly enough, whatever, just a random dude who likes talking to people. Okay. In one of my passing times, he like is staring at me and I'm like, "Can I help you?" And he's like, "No, I'm just watching you." And I'm like, "Okay." And keep going about doing my job. And then later on when I pass by again, he's like, "I didn't catch your name." And then I point to my name tag and tell him my name. And he's like, "Oh, that's nice." And then he goes to shake my hand. I was like, "Okay, nice to meet you." And then once we get a little bit slower, he a couple of times stops me to like talk to me, which I don't care too much. I can clean the tables around him while he's talking to me. It doesn't bother me. And then at some point he just starts fucking getting creepy. Like asking for my full legal name. Wanting me to take off my mask, during a pandemic, mind you, to see my face. Just things like that. Also, asking for my phone number. And then when I tell him I'm in a relationship, he's like, "Oh, well, it's up to you who you give your phone number to." I'm like, don't like the implications of that. The answer is still no, because I don't give my phone number to strangers. And then he asked for my Snapchat. And I'm just like, I can't tell if you're drunk or if you're intentionally being creepy. But then at some point during this exchange, he starts awkwardly half fake laughing, like, I'm not trying to make you uncomfortable, but in a way where it's like he knows he's making me uncomfortable and is doing it anyway, you know? So he just kind of stays there for a long time, still drinking. Initially, I tried to give him the benefit of the doubt of he's probably just drunk, but you know, it got creepy after a while. So, benefit gone. But he's just sitting there, getting closer to closing time, trying to talk to people as they're doing their job. Sometimes people will stop and talk to him, and I'm just kind of trying to skirt around him. And then it gets to closing time, and he's still there. It's just him now. And we're cleaning up, we're getting everything done. And I start to get super uncomfortable because it is my job to close that side of the restaurant. I close the side station where the workers go in and out and get drinks and stuff, and I have to clean, you know, the tables and vacuum the carpet and stuff to make sure it's ready for the next day. And since the manager and the person cleaning the kitchen are back in the kitchen, I'm now the only person out in this area with this random ass dude. I'm a little uncomfy and very vigilant. And at one point he's like, I'll stick around till you guys make me leave. And I was like, okay, well, I can't vacuum while you're still here because we're not supposed to do that. He's like, you can vacuum, it's fine, I don't care. I was like, okay. Apparently he's either too drunk or too stubborn to get the hint, and I'm not allowed to just tell him to leave. So I'm vacuuming in the section farthest away from him that I can is where I start. And then my manager comes up, walks by, circles back around and goes, do you know who that guy is? That guy that's like camping out back? And I'm like, I don't know, but I'm not comfortable. He's like, oh, okay. So I get through pretty much everything I need to do to close. The only thing that I have left to do is vacuum the section he is sitting in and clean the table he is sitting at. So I go to the back and the manager comes up to me and is like, you done? And I'm like, dude's still out there. I finished everything except for where he is. And then my manager starts getting like, that's getting ridiculous. He needs to leave. And I'm like, I know I can't tell him to leave, but you can. He's like, I'm gonna go deal with this. And I'm like, by the way, his behavior right now is reminiscent of a stalker. Because I don't know if you guys know this, but it is very much a well-known tactic of stalkers to go to someone's work and wait all the way through until they leave so that they now know how long you typically take to leave. So I tell my manager this, I tell him I'm very uncomfortable, and I tell him some of the things the guy has done to make me uncomfortable, and he's like, you stay back here. You hide back here, I'm gonna deal with the rest of whatever's going on, because he's a good manager. So he goes out and talks to the guy, he's like, my ride left. He's like, well, you gotta find one anyway, because we're gonna close soon, so get a ride, you don't have an option. And he suggests, maybe one of you guys can take me home. He's like, not gonna happen. Find a ride. He comes back, does other stuff, and then the guy comes into the kitchen. You know, where I'm hiding from him? He also, you know, staff only area. He just walks into the fucking kitchen, and the manager goes, what's up? Did you get a ride? And he's like, no, I wasn't working. Neither Uber or Lyft. And he's like, yeah, because I believe that. So he's just like, well, taxis exist. Let's call one of them. Go out there and call a taxi. He's like, oh, those still exist? Haha. And he's like, yes, surprisingly they do. Now go call one. So guy gets out of the kitchen. I then go around the corner of where I was to hide more in case he tries to come back into the kitchen. And then he gives him another like 10 minutes, and then he goes out there and he's still just sitting there. He's like, did you get a taxi? And he's like, I couldn't find the number. He's like, I got you, dude. I can get him right here. And then he's like, oh, I found it. And then he puts his phone to his ear, to where my manager can still see that it's on the home screen instead of the dial screen. And he's like, that what the fuck? So at this point, he's like, okay, really? He's like, I don't care what you do, but you do have to actually leave the store at this point. You can't stay in here. You gotta go outside. You gotta leave. So he leads the guy outside of the building, and then he just fucking camps out. Right in front of the building. And so he goes to check on him after a while. He's like, oh, haha, I'm gonna try Uber and Lyft one more time. He's like, sounds good. But if you're not gone by a certain point, I gotta call the cops. Just a little nudge. So he comes back inside, comes to check on me and the other guy, and he's like, even if the guy does leave, I'm still calling the cops, at the very least to escort us out of here. And I'm just standing there like, thank God. And he didn't tell me this at the time because he knew I was scared. But I later found out that when he was out there with the dude telling him to leave, and he's like, oh, I'm gonna try Uber and Lyft again, he turns around and is like, are you sure that none of you guys can take me home? I really wanted her to take me home. It's like, first of all, why the fuck would my manager ever let that happen? Second of all, why the absolute fuck do you think that I would ever do that? I'm not that dumb. So after a while, he goes out, finally sees the guy get into some random car that comes up, is like, okay. He calls the cops, they come over to escort us out, we get out of the building, and obviously the police officer's like, where's the dude? And he's like, I don't know, I saw him get into a car, but I didn't actually see him leave. For all I know, he could have circled around and stopped at the back of the building. So, you know, and the cop was like, understandable, obviously, here to help. One of my buddies is parked out back. And I was like, thank God. Because the parking for workers is in the back of the building. And even though we're technically allowed to park closer to the front when we're on a closing shift, I don't usually do that because there aren't usually parking spaces up front for me to take. So my manager who had parked up front went to his car first, and then me and the other dude go up to the back where our cars are parked. And let me tell you, I felt so much better about the fact that the police car, the other one, was parked directly next to my vehicle. So we went out back. I did my usual routine of when I'm still pretty far away, leaning down to make sure nobody's hiding under my car. Went around, got in, checked the back seat, locked the door, immediately started, went to leave. I waved a very hearty thank you to the police, and then went off on my night. And of course, because I was still paranoid, I couldn't just forget about it. On my way home, anytime there was a car that came up behind me and stayed behind me for more than a few seconds, let me tell you, I got so goddamn paranoid and so anxious. Like, I was constantly doing that go slower than the speed limit on a highway just to make sure that they would go around me so I knew they weren't following me thing. Like, it was a mess. It was not fun. The fact that these things happen on a regular basis is such bullshit, but I wanted to get something good out of this experience, so I figured at the very least, content? If not, I guess a word of warning for anyone else who might be in a similar situation. Anyways, that's going to be the end of this video. Hope you enjoyed it, but if you didn't, that's perfectly okay and definitely perfectly understandable. So hopefully I'll see you in the next video anyway. But until then, I hope the rest of your day and or night is just as lovely as you are. Bye-bye. Memento mori. I already really miss the channel.